Madam Speaker, I think it is good to be honest. When the president issued protocols of COVID, no, you can't shout me down, Wewe. You can't shout me down. Can I speak? No, this is not a marketplace. This is not a marketplace. You cannot shout. It is very clear. Madam Speaker, Madams, we are leaders. Speaking to me.
Hatukuja hapa kama watu ambao hawako kazini. Tuko kazini. Sisi ni wale wafanyikazi maalum, essential workers. Kwa hiyo mimi nasema kwamba Bi Speaker, hoja hii ni hoja ya nidhamu. Ni muhimu wewe Bi Speaker uongeze wakati wa sisi kujadiliana mjadala huu ambao ni muhimu sana katika maisha ya Kenya.
Point taken.
It was passed that the Senate will only adjourn if the business in the order paper is completed. If any person, let me just conclude. If any person is desirous of cutting the time of debate, they know the standing orders that will go.
Standing orders taking precedent as to how long we can stay here, while we are all very aware that the President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, directed that not even waheshimiwas are above the law. So at 9 o'clock, Madam Speaker, the Senate needs to shut down. Tomorrow is another day. Tomorrow is another day. We're already late. I think this House should complete what it's supposed to be doing today, and I think the issue has been overtaken by events, and therefore, let's continue. Do not run away because you're sensing defeat.
It is now 9:05. It is time to interrupt the business of the House. The House therefore stands adjourned until Tuesday, 4th August 2020 at 2:30 p.m. So be ordered.
All right, the chaotic conclusion of business last night, of course, as you hear, Madam Speaker, they are saying that it's 9:05 and they had to stop the proceedings. And joining us this morning is Senator Dr. Ali Abdullahi from Wajir County, as well as Senator Dr. Isaac Maura. It's a panel of doctors. Good morning, both of you. And Senator...
Good morning.
Right, and let me begin with you, Senator Abdullahi, because this is your first time here on Daybreak. And I want to understand, so yesterday we saw the suspension of business. Of course, there's so many things have happened. Do you think there's any indication that soon we'll have a solution out of this, despite the chaos that we saw last night?
Thank you. I hope we will have. We were already on the verge of getting the solution when our friends felt that things were not going. They decided to use the name of the president, and we had to wait, and we decided to go home. But Tuesday, inshallah, we will proceed with the motion, the amendment motion, and things will proceed as required by law. Thank you.
All right, you remain so hopeful. Senator Maura, so this was the 6th time there was an attempt to really have a formula that would guide on how revenue or money that has already been allocated is to be shared to the 47 counties, but we still don't have that formula. What is your highlight from the proceedings yesterday?
I think it's a country having a conversation with itself about what needs to happen. And it's quite interesting, Sam, to realize that we have not changed much since 1963, because the conversation, therefore, becomes more about which counties, it is almost like the big tribes, but the small tribes and all of that. But I really hope that we will find a solution, actually, as senators, because what I'm seeing is also a lot of political dishonesty on the part of the many senators on the floor of the House.
All right, you call it political dishonesty. Let's listen to what the senators had to say just before the suspension of business of the House last night. We know that there was an attempt by the majority whip, Irungu Kangata, to amend the report that was presented by the Finance Committee, and this was to the indication that instead of starting to implement the new formula immediately, then that should be moved by about 3 years or so. Let's listen to what he had to say, or the senator had to say.
Even if the amount that we are dividing, 316 billion was divided, it is still not enough to take care of counties and the needs of the Kenyans in every of the 47 counties, Mr. Speaker.
If we had given ourselves a bit of time, if we had not begun to politicize this matter, we might have moved to a place where we are all in agreement, a place where we could say we have reached a middle ground.
Wajir was going to lose 2 billion shillings, not tomorrow, now. And through Senator Kangata's motion, amendment, they are not going to lose 2 billion now. They are not going to lose 2 billion next year. In the third year, they're not going to lose 2 billion. Compared to Siaya, what do I get in Siaya? It is not in terms of billions. Siaya does not talk in terms of billions. Let us be serious. In Siaya, we don't talk about billions. We are talking about 100 million, 10 million. Look at some of the counties. Even you talk about Lamu, they are talking about 100 million. We have lost our minds with respect. We have lost our minds. And I was trying to look for a way forward where we can sit together as a people to decide where we go.
Be amended by deleting the phrase commencement financial year 2021-2022 appearing on page 16 of the report to 2024-2025 shall commence in the financial year 2022-2023. Abstentions 0. Yes. The noes 25. Yes. The ayes 22. So which means the noes have it.
All right, a very passionate plea there by Senator Orengo, but still the senators voted to have that motion or amendment by Rungo Kangata defeated. Senator Abdullahi, what exactly do you now want? Because that attempt to postpone this implementation of the formula was rejected by the senators. What do you think are your options?
The options are, we have the Sakaja amendments, which was moved, and which is on the floor now, and hopefully we will be continuing with that debate on Tuesday. The only thing I want to say is that, as per Dr. Maura said, there's a lot of political dishonesty. There's no passionate plea there. When you see Senator Orengo talking like that, everybody expected he was going to say no, but in the end he says yes. You know, I applaud people like Senator Maura and others. From day one, they had their go, and some of us had our go. But unfortunately, as he put it correctly, there's a lot of political dishonesty. People take you round. They go one way, then they change to the other way, and I don't think that's the way to lead. That's not proper leadership. We should decide this thing one way or the other. And as far as I am concerned, we will continue with the process. If there are other amendments which can be brought to the I will say that first and foremost, the one of the committee is not right. The committee came up with something called square, which does not exist anywhere in the world. We can go back to the CRA formula and work around that formula and see how best we can help all counties, and we come together in the middle. But the one of the so-called committee does not exist. It's illegal. There was no public participation with that square root. So I don't think we can go that way. But with the CRA formula, we can go around it and work around it and say the way forward.
I know, Senator Dr. Maura, you do not have a private vote, but you have a delegation vote. Maybe you can update us on how Kiambu voted on that amendment. Now that we are where we are, the political dishonesty, as you call it, what do we do to find a solution? Because counties need to run.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sam. The challenge we have with this whole issue is because it is no longer about the formula. It has now since become about 2022 politics. It's about which voting bloc will be with you or can be with you. It's about maintenance of loyalty on the part of those who have voted for you before. And that being the case, therefore, we don't end up having a compromise because we are also trying to be unrealistic. And why am I saying so? Counties are not willing to cede grounds on the basis of how much they are losing or how much they are gaining. And it's good I put this on record that at some point I was actually the acting interim chair for that committee. Senator Abdullahi was also, we were members in that committee. And we had kind of tried to bridge the gap by reducing the losses and also reducing the gains to bring people to the center. But still, even when we did so, with a variation of the CRA formula, we still ended up with a stalemate because senators have got one problem. They don't want to be seen to be losing, especially because the role of a senator is defined by two key issues. One is to bring monies to counties where they come from, and also number two is to guarantee oversight, to ensure oversight that those such monies are not misappropriated. Now, the Kangata amendment was thus seeking to postpone such given laws to 2022 July, so that you actually postpone the gains of the counties that are heretofore getting less than they actually deserve, such a time that this does not injure, the standing of the fellow senators. But then we saw that being defeated, and we saw actually people uniting around tribes. For example, Senator Malala is on record as having said that he has to stand with the Murembe Nation because of Vihiga. You saw the same with Professor Ongeri because of the Kisii-Nyamira issue. You saw also the same with Kajiado because of Narok. So then it actually became a tribal affair. And that is why I'm saying it's actually political dishonesty. Why do I need to say this? Because a county like where I come from, Kiambu, is supposed to gain about 1 billion shillings or so. But this is not actually gaining. This is actually restitution, in my own opinion, because currently Kiambu is not getting enough amount of money, whether you go the per capita way, whether you go the current formula in terms of equitable share, we still do not seem to get what we deserve. And yet, actually, sometimes when you talk about Kiambu, you may think we are talking about Kikuyus, because it is a county associated in Mount Kenya region. But Kiambu, about 35% of the population are non-Kikuyus. We are basically having a challenge around some urbanizing counties, most populous, versus the less populous counties. The argument around land and against the population, you see, these are serious kind of ideological underpinnings that inform this whole game of figures and monies.
Senator Dr. Ali, so now the senator from Kiambu, but also the nominated senator, is bringing that argument about restitution. I don't know whether that can be said, because the money that has been allocated to Kiambu has been based on a formula that is already in law, of course endorsed by the House, by the Senate. But now moving forward, there has been that argument about population versus service delivery, and looking at the counties like the one that you represent, which would appear to be sparsely populated. What do you think should be the right thing to do for the country?
When you look at this new formula and when you see at the map, that map looks exactly like the map of 1963 or 65 when we were discriminated because we were told that you come from rural areas and very fine, whatever. So the way things are going now, if we are taken the same way, then I don't think this country will go anywhere. But unfortunately, the issue of equity and equitability, people misuse those words. They are not used in the right sense. What is equity? At least we have no problem with population. We want the populous countries to get their share. But we should not be discriminated because of our sparsely populated areas. Look at the regions, what money is required. Look at North Horn, for example, Marsabit County. From Saku, the Marsabit town, to somewhere called Ileret, is 600 kilometers. And somebody comes up with a square root, and now how much the only place it will serve is possibly 250, or a maximum of 300 kilometers. Those things are not viable. In Wajir, for me to go from one side of Wajir town to where my home, which is called Bute in the Ethiopian border, is 300 kilometers away. So when you tell me that Kiambu, every 2 kilometers you can get a hospital, while in Wajir you cannot get a hospital every 50 kilometers. You have no water, you have no roads, and you are told of restitution. What about what happened to me for the last 50 years? What about the other 85% of the national cake? Where does it go? Why do you look at 316.5 billion?
And
you don't
Dr.
want to
Ali,
say about the other 3 trillion, my friend.
Okay, Dr. Ali,
so
this argument that the per capita share of the revenue that has been allocated every county, it would appear that the sparsely populated counties have a better rate. How does that reconcile with the argument that you provide services to people, not land, not distance?
You provide services to people, and you have to consider where they stay. If you say that you don't care about somebody who stays 100 kilometers away and they are fewer, and you want to take care of those ones who are 5 kilometers away and can reach one hospital here, and you want to build for them another one 5 kilometers away, but the one which is 50 or 60 kilometers away, you don't care, I think that is the wrong way to go. When you look at the experts and they talk about per capita, Kiambu, or if you talk about Kenya region, as people who have analyzed, if you check at what Dr. Ndi says, if you say, look at what Bill Okero says, that issue does not arise. And if you go to the Constitution, what does the Finance and Management Whatever Act 201, Article 201B3, talks of equity and equality. It talks of people, marginalized people being given support, not saying that you don't give these people anything because of sparsity. So I think that thing is very emotive. That one will not work, and it's not going to change anything if we continue that way.
All right, and Senator Mora, before I get to you, let's listen to what Senator Sakaja of Nairobi is proposing as an amendment to sort of reopen this conversation and give an end to the standoff.
The formula is that for any amount of 316.5 billion and below, the allocations shall be as per the 2019-2020 allocations to counties, and that doesn't change. If your county had 8 billion, you'll have a minimum of 8 billion. If your county had 10 billion, you'll have a minimum of 10 billion. Any amount above that, Mr. Speaker, will then be applied based on the formula.
That's the latest proposal, and that's where the House adjourned last night because of time. And Senator Mwaura, so Senator Sakaja is saying that you have to secure how much every county has been receiving. Of course, the Senate has that responsibility to pass it into law as they may wish. Do you think it's a good idea to secure the likes of Wajir County that is just about to lose 2 billion shillings starting almost immediately?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sam. I think, look at the photo behind you. You have some pie that is being shared, and there are people holding the knife. Now, the question is, do you actually share the pie based on how much the food is in there and the number of people, or do you share the pie based on the size of the dinner plate? I think the answer is very simple. You share the food as it is. You don't share the food as per the size of the dinner plate. I would want to imagine that one looks like a pizza. Now, Senator Ablai is making a very interesting proposition that the only people who cover distance are the ones who come from sparsely populated areas. I tend to disagree. If you want to know how much distance one can cover, ask a watchman who keeps on opening a door and closing it, or a gate. Why am I saying so? The kind of distance we also cover in Kiambu and other densely populated places to reach people is a long distance because we are serving people. That's number one. Number two, you cannot say because there is a hospital, and by there is no place where there is a hospital every 2 kilometers. I have never come across such. That justifies monies to go to sparsely populated areas. Why? Because if you have a building with no staff, with no medicine, poorly run, is that equal to an hospital? And let me give you an example of Ruiru, where I come from. There was a time I went to donate some sanitizers there. I found a lady by the name Kagendo walking around the compound with no sanitizers, with empty bottles. And she was very happy that I had brought them. And if you look at that place, it's actually highly dilapidated. This idea of saying that we have been marginalized since 1965, 1963, all of that, it may be justified. But you don't cure it by marginalizing others. And why I say you don't create new forms of marginalization. Because there's also wear and tear. You can't say a road that was there in 1963 is still in the same condition. Look at a place like Githunguri. Githunguri at some point was once almost tarmacked everywhere. Today, those roads are like shambas. You get the point.
Senator Mora, I hear you and you're justified to say what you're saying, but it is the reality. Despite the fact that you may not have a hospital in Kiambu every 2 kilometers, it is reality that in absolute numbers, Kiambu County would have more hospitals than Wajir County, and of course it is easier in access. in terms of the distance you have to cover to get to a hospital. So how do you reconcile all these realities and the fact that Wajir and other counties in the north remain marginalized 7 years down the line?
Yeah, I think that is contestable when you say access. What is access when you go there and you cannot get the service? Is it just getting into a compound?
That's why I said distance.
So no, it's not about distance. It's about service delivery. You can't just say that you walk up to something written in a hospital there is equal to service delivery, because you want to be cured. And also the number of people, the population has actually increased. And in terms of usage, if you look at even capacity, if you look at even ratio, if you look at even priority, I mean, we have had people dying on the waiting, waiting actually to get services. So that for me, that argument does not fly. Number two, it is true that then, Wajir, Mandera, and other counties who have heretofore not been given resources should be given their resources. But they should be given their fair share. They should not be seen to be given that which also deserves to go to other places.
What is fair according to you?
It's about the population. It's about a fair calculation of what, I mean, it's about using parameters that do not disproportionately, disadvantage other people. Let me give you an example. A county like Kilifi. Kilifi has got 1.4 million people. It gets 10 billion. My county of Kiambu has 2.4 million people. It gets 9 billion. How do you explain that sum? Number two, there's an equalization fund. And the CRA has also come up with what you call the marginalization policy. That also should serve. If there are areas, they should be released to these 14 counties. Number three, also, if you look at the CDF is actually another form of decentralization. It is monies from the national government kitty, where you allocate 100 million or so to the 290 constituencies. And take an example of a place like Mbalambala. Mbalambala has got 20,000 voters, getting the same amount of money like Ruiru, which has got 160,000 voters. The county of my brother, Dr. Abdullahi, has got how many people? Is it 167,000? He can correct me. But the number of people there could be equal to the number of people in the constituency. Ruiru has 490,000 people. So it's like Kipia, a place called Iguambiti, one ward has 40,000 people. So let us not...
All right,
Senator,
Senator, let's bring in Dr. Ali, because there's something that you've raised there saying that Kilifi gets 10 billion, Kiambu gets 9 billion, yeah, the population in Kiambu is high. I'm sure there are other considerations, including the poverty index. So, Senator Abdullahi, there's that proposal by Senator Sakaja, which you said that your hopes are hanging in there. So, do you think there's a possibility that the House is going to agree with this proposal, despite the voting that we saw last night?
I hope so, Sam. I hope so. And if I go back to what Senator Maura said, the pie behind you, that pie behind you, when you see somebody with a bigger share, with another smaller share, look at the green part, look at the red part, look at the blue part. These things are not the same. So from his own idea or whatever he said, you can see that this is the way to share equitably, depending on, it's not about the plate. It is about what you can take and what you need. This is about the need. The one with the green possibly is already has already eaten. He's not that hungry. But the one with the brown needs more. So that is how we should share, not the way you want, equitably. When you go, he talked of equalization fund. He has talked of CDF fund. CDF funds, when they were first introduced, it was done properly the way we are doing now, the way the counties are given money. Some constituencies, specifically where Senator Maura comes from, complained. And that's why CDF for every constituency was given 100 million now. But people are still complaining. When will you get satisfied? You have talked about equalization funds. You know what has happened to equalization funds. The 1 billion which was used, over 800 million was used by public servants. That's PSs and MDs flying around with helicopters. That money has not been released to date. Others are talking about when BPI comes and 35%, where will that come? What we have is not enough, but we are happy with the way things are.
Right.
If you, sorry.
Senator Ali, I like your analogy about the pie.
If you talk about Kilifi, if you talk about everywhere else, look at resources. People are talking of resources. Where does the resources come from? When you talk of Coast Region, you talk of tourism, it comes from Kilifi, it comes from Lamu, it comes from Mombasa, Kwale. The other part is Narok, okay, Kajiado, Taita Taveta. Now, when it comes to other resources, nobody talks about where the resources come from. That myth of resources coming from certain areas has already been debunked now. So, Let's make sure that we use the resources proper. This is 316.5 out of 3 trillion. Where do the other monies go? Why are you complaining about this small amount? This is what surprises me. We want equity. Let's go for equity. Let's have a proper debate. Let's know where monies are going. Let's know from the national government how much money goes to Kiambu and how much money goes to Wajir. Why are we talking about this small amount?
Right.
I think my friend Wamaura should be more reasonable. Our friends from the majority communities in this country should be more reasonable. Stop pushing the minorities to the corner.
Right. Senator Ali, I like your knowledge about the pie. I'm just wondering whether the person who is receiving the biggest share of the brown pie is receiving that because of the size of their stomach or the size of their appetite. But all the same, I'm taking a look at the numbers of Wajir County. Out of a budget of over, I think, 11 billion shillings for the financial year 2019-2020, it would appear that the development budget absorption rate was at 21.7% by the 3 quarters of the financial year. I'll shortly be looking at Kiambu. But before I do so, tell me about if these resources, up to 2 billion shillings, are reduced from your allocation, how much of service delivery would be affected? Are you talking about the recurrent or just or also the development while comparing that to the absorption rate, which would appear pretty low?
Sam, one thing I want to say is that I don't want to talk on behalf of governors. Governors make a lot of mistakes. Governors cause a lot of problems to the people who have elected them. Wajir is not an exception. Wajir has a lot of big problems when it comes to management of resources. But that said, if you remove 2 billion from Wajir with all the problems we have right now, when the national, centers, the EACC, the DCI, the controller of budget, treasury, they are not doing their job properly. That one, we already know that when you reduce 2 billion from that, I will assure you, services, the little services we have in Wajir will come to standstill. There will be no development at all. There will be no even recurrent expenditures because vehicles already, because of distances, they have all been grounded. We have no ambulances moving. If you reduce that amount, I'm assuring you, even salary might be a problem, and people will leave because they will have no allowances. So it's going to affect totally Wajir, and most of these large counties will come to stand.
Right, and Senator Maura, I'm looking at Kiambu and saying that out of a budget of 17.9 billion shillings, 6.4 billion shillings have been allocated to development budget, but the 9th month of the financial year concluded in June 30th, the absorption rate had been 32.7%. It is way better than Wajir, but still there have been those concerns that absorption rates of budgets, especially development kitty, has been low, and then there's the pilferage or the misuse or the embezzlement of funds. So people are asking, you're asking for more money, yet the little that you've had, you've not done so well. How do you reconcile the desire for the Senate to allocate as many or as more resources as possible, despite what we are seeing on the ground?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. I think I take some exception with my friend Dr. Abdullahi saying that people who are demanding for more money under CDF, why are they not satisfied? I mean, that kind of arrogance is what is causing this debate not to have traction. Because when you talk about CDF, it can never be enough for people who are demanding for more. If you allocate bursaries, Wajir can afford to even give one student 50,000 shillings. But us even giving 2,000 is actually a miracle. And when you talk about, even the infrastructural development, you require more money actually to maintain that which is already there, really, and even to create more. And when you look at the GDP, Sam, you realize that Nakuru, Kiambu, Mombasa, Kisumu receive the least share, while the total contribution of their GDP is 43.2%. Now, the issue of pilferage is affecting many counties, and I think we as senators must challenge ourselves, and I think Dr. Blai can agree with me, to create measures to ensure that there is more proper, oversight and also controls on fiscal accountability. But then, having said that, a good chunk of the monies invested in northern counties ends up in Isili, to fund the Isili economy. The same case you can also say about other counties. We've had stories of monies from Turkana County buying hotels. You saw the case of Samburu actually is more vivid. 2 billion was misappropriated, and what do we see in return were properties in Kileleshwa, petrol stations, and what have you. So it's like just the river water going back to the river, because this is where you are actually generating the revenue. Is about the Nairobi metropolitan area. So we have a challenge, because if governors are actually stealing money from their people, but it doesn't mean, therefore, that money should not go there, because it is a question of also the electorate electing more accountable leaders, you see, so that who can actually take care of their interests. Now, coming to Kiambu.
Yes, quickly, Senator, because you're out of time.
Yeah, I don't know why some you always say I'm out of time.
No, we, not you.
But anyway, let me say this. Let's come to the issue of Kiambu. Kiambu has got actually a wage bill of 8 billion. Can you imagine? 8 billion is what you use to pay salaries, because we inherited a lot of stuff from the national, and also you look at even doctors, they come, they are in Kiambu, but they actually go for higher education. So Kiambu has issues. Of course, the high absorption capacity is an issue that the northern counties must also address, because they are not absorbing as much. In fact, money is going back to the national treasury. However, the demand is still very much there. I think there is a general issue of cash flow management from the time there is exchequer release, and I think you asked that question to the controller of budget. But also further to this, there's an issue of procurement plans. Sometimes they are too ambitious. There's so much you can do in a year compared to actually what the procurement process is under Article 227 and the public procurements Act. So I think those some of the issues we need to look at generally.
Okay.
But also,
no, Senator. That's enough. Thank you so much.
I wanted to talk about also
No, we may not. We may not, Senator. I want to thank you so much, Senator Daktari Ali Abdullahi from Wajir County, as well as Senator Daktari Isaac Mora, for joining us on this conversation. And Ndungu Wainene on Twitter saying that most counties and also national deliberately fail to adhere to budget preparation laws so as to deny Kenyans chance to fully participate in budget making. The COB has to enforce transparency in budgetary processes, both for national and county governments. Thank you so much for watching. Up next is Wednesday Workout with Simon Karanja.